An idea to film this video came to me when I was actually working on another video, the video I'm really passionate about. And when I'm passionate about the thing, I really want that thing to be perfect. Unfortunately, I have a bad trait, and that trait is to always underestimate the time good things tend to take. When I daydream about projects or things I want to create, I always forget that those things can take a lot of my time, a lot of my effort, and also a lot of my skills I may not actually have. So when I meet the reality, I feel really disappointed. I believe if you're a creative person, you know what I'm talking about, you know that feeling. That happened to me last week. I totally fell into that feeling of disappointment and apathy when you don't want to do anything, you don't want to continue. And then I said to myself, Katya, you're so familiar with that feeling. Don't you know how to deal with it? And you know what? I do. I do know. Because this feeling of disappointment followed me 4 years straight when I was doing my bachelor degree in architecture, and I actually learned some lessons from it, which I want to share with you today in this video. So meet life lessons I learned while working in a creative field, or things I wish every creative person would hear. My name is Katya. On this channel I talk about work-life balance, things that interest me, and of course about creativity. Welcome. And the first lesson or fact that I did not accept for a long time is that even if you don't see the result, it doesn't mean there is none. I mean those days when you spend hours and hours of work and a ton of genuine effort, and still at the end of the day you are left with purely nothing. It is frustrating, it is sad, and it leaves you with the feeling that you are a loser who just lost a day. It is even worse when you work towards some certain and important deadline. But having to face it a bunch of times with my university or work projects, I understood that those days are an important part of an art process, and they are actually as productive as days with visible result. And that is why. Each time you try out something you only imagined before, it includes sketching, researching, and similar activities, you get rid of bad ideas, and that will save you time later. For example, I have in my mind some ideas. I spend a whole day working on them just to acknowledge that those ideas are bad and they just don't work. Yes, I have to draw, I have to do my research, I have to sometimes even create a simple 3D model just to give up an idea. And at the end of the day, I have nothing to save on my computer, nothing to measure my progress with, but I have an understanding that that idea was not so good and I have to leave it early. So yes, the result is not always visible, but it doesn't mean that the whole day of work just went to waste. And as we are talking about good and bad ideas, there is next lesson I've learned, and it is don't be afraid to lose an idea, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, or even 12, or even 100. I believe it also applies on your personal life. Never be afraid to lose your first impression or your belief in order to see things from different perspective. Sometimes we are stuck in one place because things we really want to work don't work or work badly. I believe at this point you just need to let it go. And if we are not talking about personal life but art projects, I have a trick for you that can help you to let go of your ideas easily. When you draw for a long time, your eyes get used to a project and you just don't see mistakes anymore, or you just don't see if it's going in the right direction. So when you're in this situation, just use a mirror. The trick is to look at your art project through the mirror. Then you see it from different perspectives. Your eyes will not be addicted to the picture in the mirror, so you will instantly see all mistakes or all things you need to let go of. Moving on to the next lesson, and this lesson is especially important to architecture student. So if you're an architecture student, listen carefully, please. Sleep. Please sleep. Don't you ever punish yourself with a lack of sleep. Trust me, I've learned it the hardest way possible. There is nothing great about not sleeping. Honestly, it's just a signal of how unorganized you are. Unfortunately, in architecture schools, there is a type of competition who slept less. I have slept just 3 hours. Oh, I have slept just 1 hour. Oh, I haven't slept at all. There is nothing to be proud of. It's just a huge damage on your nervous system and also on your self-esteem, because it damages your inner belief that you deserve the best treatment possible. No loving person would never make you stay up all night to work, so please be your own loving person and do not do this. The next lesson I've learned may seem a little bit toxic. We tend to always look up to someone and to compare ourselves with the best possible result. But why not to try to compare ourselves with the opposite? I understand that it's probably an evil advice, but guys, there are so many ugly buildings out there, awful designs and just bad art, and I encourage you to discover those things. Why? So you can let go of your perfectionism. Nothing is perfect, and some things are far away from perfect, but they still exist. Of course, it is always great to aim for the best possible result, but sometimes something is better than nothing. And if you still punish yourself for settling for imperfect result, just look around. Trust me, it's better to start and to do something than to always dream of something perfect and never actually doing it. I don't want to be toxic the whole video, so let's move to the next thing. This understanding is probably the best of them all and was truly very useful for me, and it is that indecisiveness is your worst enemy. I believe perfectionists will really use this one. When we want something to be perfect, we start to overthink our decisions so much that eventually we don't make any. When you are in a work mode, decide quickly. It is always better and easier to fix some minor mistakes than to have nothing to fix at all. It would save me a lot of time and nerve cells if I was more decisive while working. Strike while the iron is hot. It also applies on throwing ideas out, I talked about previously. Just don't be shy to decide. Remember that at the end of the day, it's just about gaining experience and having fun. And even if you decided the worst way possible and now you have to face criticism, remember, it is your work being criticized, not you. You're a complex, beautiful creature that experiences life in so many different ways. Sometimes you can be the worst student, the worst worker, disaster, disappointment, but that still does not mean that you are a bad person. Nothing is black and white, and I believe that blessed are those who learned how to divide their work life from their personal life. Yes, it is way harder for a creative person to do so, to divide those lives, because I know that if you're a creative person, you think about your project all the time, you see it everywhere, it's just your life in some way, but still we need to learn how to do it. You're not the drawing you created, you're not the grade you got, you're not the expectations your boss or your professors expect you to meet. Learn from your failure and move on. But if we are talking about personal lives and getting personal, then make your personality actually work for you. Even though being humble is very important to always improve yourself, without confidence, there is a huge danger that we won't find strength to establish our point of view. I guess that without this inner belief that we are worthy, we just give other people an opportunity and power to shape our beliefs about ourselves, to shape our perception of ourselves. I cried so many times in university toilets because some older man said some unpleasant things about my projects. And even if those things were true in some way, I should not instantly think about myself as a stupid loser. Yes, of course, it's about taking criticism adequately, but also it's about believing that my opinion is as valid as his. At the end of the day, some people became successful because they believed in themselves, no matter how ridiculous their ideas were at the start. And the last lesson for today is to remember, everything is just a skill. Back to the basics, I believe, but honestly, one of the most important understanding I've come to understand through the years was that everything is about discipline. I always say that the Sims game really tried to tell us this the best way possible. No matter how talented you are, discipline wins over everything. Sometimes I look at my interior design projects or architecture projects and I say to myself that, oh my god, those are not good. But then I remember that there was a time in my life when I could not even draw at all, when I knew nothing about architecture or interior design or art at all. And maybe if I just keep going, one day I might get skills I want, vision I want, style I want, projects I want, work proposals I dream of. But even if I don't, I want to know that I did everything I could, that I did not rely on just being lucky, on having a talent. I want to have a discipline and a skill. And that was it from me for today. I thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, as well as I hope it was helpful for you in some way. And I'll see you soon. Goodbye.